The Swiss Family Robinson, Chapter 14, The Sledge. I had noticed the previous evening, as we came along the beach, a quantity of wood which I thought suitable for making a sledge, on which to bring our casks and heavy stores from Tent House to Falcon's Nest. At dawn of day I awoke Ernest, and leaving the rest asleep, we descended. Then harnessing the donkey to a strong forked branch of a tree that was lying near, we set off toward the shore. I had no difficulty in selecting suitable pieces of timber, which, having sawed to the right length, we tied together and laid across the bow to which the donkey was harnessed. Adding to this load a small sailor's chest, which we found half buried in the sand, we returned home, Ernest leading the donkey, while I followed, assisting to raise the load with a lever when we met with an obstacle. My wife had been somewhat alarmed at our absence, but seeing the result of our expedition and hearing of the prospect of a sledge, she was well pleased at what we had done. The chest was eagerly opened and examined. It was found to contain clothes and linen, almost completely spoiled by seawater, but still of value to us. Fritz and Jack had been shooting wood pigeons during our absence, and had consumed so much powder and shot that I felt it my duty to interfere. For at such a rate our store of ammunition would soon fail, and besides, for the present, we had birds enough. My wife agreed with this sensible advice, and I therefore showed them how to make snares for the birds from the threads of caratus leaves. The two younger sons busied themselves with these, while I, with the elder boys, began to build the sledge. Whilst thus engaged, we heard a great commotion among our poultry. They screamed and cackled and fluttered about in such alarm that we ran with all speed to the spot. Quite by chance, Ernest saw the monkey rush under one of the arched roots with the newly laid egg in his paw and disappear behind the tree as the boy approached. But Ernest was too quick for him, and on searching found the egg hidden in the grass with 3 others. We therefore decided to punish the young thief by keeping him a prisoner every morning till the eggs were collected. On returning to dinner, Jack, who had mounted into the tree to search for a suitable spot on which to place the bird traps, came down hastily with the news that a pair of our pigeons were building a nest among the branches. I at once forbade all shooting in the trees, and decided that the idea of placing traps there for the birds must for present be abandoned. As the boys followed me to the spot at which I had left the wood, little Frank amused us by asking, "Papa, why can't we sow gunpowder instead of those seeds? It would be so much more useful than grain to us." His brothers laughed heartily, and Ernest exclaimed, "Why, Frankie, gunpowder's not a seed. It will not grow like oats." I then exclaimed to them that gunpowder is made of saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal mixed together, and that Roger Bacon, a monk of Oxford in England, who lived in the 13th century, discovered that these materials united would form an explosive substance. By perseverance and hard work, we managed to construct the sledge. I joined 2 curved pieces of wood by 3 pieces across, 1 in front and 1 behind, with the 3rd in the middle. On these we nailed planks, and then fastening the ropes to our outer points, the sledge stood complete. My wife and the 2 young boys were occupied in plucking birds, while a number of them were already roasting before the fire on a spit formed with the blade of a Spanish sword, which belonged to one of the ship's officers. It seemed unnecessary to cook so many at once, but my wife explained that she was getting them ready for the butter cask I was to bring for her on the new sledge, and she had decided to preserve them half cooked and packed in butter for use when other supplies should fail. I prepared to start for Tent House with the sledge directly after dinner. In addition to arms, each of us carried in our girdles of shark skin not only a hunting knife, but a beautiful case made by Fritz from his tiger cat skin, containing a knife, fork, and spoon. We harnessed both the cow and the donkey to the sledge. Juno accompanied us, but Turk remained behind as protection to those at home. Choosing the way by the sandy shore, we arrived without adventure at our storehouse. We unharnessed the animals, leaving them to find pasture, while we loaded the sledge, not only with the butter cask, but also with powder barrel, the cask of cheese, and a variety of other articles. So engrossed were we in this work that we did not at first perceive that our two beasts, attracted by the fresh green turf, had wandered away across the bridge to the opposite shore, and had quite disappeared. I immediately dispatched Ernest in search of them with the dog, while I sought for myself a convenient spot in which to bathe, for the heat was very oppressive. Wandering towards Safety Bay, I discovered a little creek, enclosed on one side by a marsh overgrown with significant reeds, and on the other by a chain of rocks stretching far into the sea, thus forming a most secluded bathing place. I called Ernest, but as he did not make his appearance, I went to look for him, and was surprised at discovering the youngster lying at full length in a shady spot around, sound asleep, while the donkey and the cow, which I had sent him to find, were comfortably grazing beside him. "Get up, you lazy fellow," I exclaimed. "Why, these animals might have recrossed the bridge and given us a pretty chase." "No fear of that, Papa," he replied, as he lazily roused himself. "I have removed a few planks from the bridge, and it's not likely that they will venture over it now." I bid him go and gather a bagful of salt, which he had formerly noticed in the crevices of the rock, while I took a bath. I found the sea most cool and refreshing, and dressed as quickly as possible after coming out of the water. Whilst I cutting a bundle of reeds, suddenly I heard the voice exclaiming, "Papa, Papa, come quick! I have caught a huge fish. I can scarcely hold him." I ran immediately to his aid, and found him stretched upon the bank and struggling with all his might to retain an enormous fish, whose efforts threatened to draw him into the water, line and all. I quickly took the line from his hand and lengthened it to give the fish a little play, gradually drew it into the shallow. Ernest then waded into the water and put an end its struggles with a blow with a hatchet. I found it was a magnificent fish, apparently of the salmon kind, of about 15 pounds weight, which would form an excellent addition to our store of provisions and be most acceptable to Mother. While Ernest had his bath, I cleaned and sprinkled the fish with salt, and then, harnessing the cattle to the sledge, we soon crossed the bridge and reached home without difficulty. At once, I proceeded to display the contents of the sledge before the astonished eyes of our dear ones, and the butter and the cheese casks, the reeds, the salt, and the fish were all greatly admired and praised. After unloading, I fed and tied the tired animals, adding some salt to their food, which they relished exceedingly, salt being necessary to keep them in health, as for ourselves. We then sat down to a splendid dinner of fish, caught by Ernest, and some baked potatoes. It was speedily finished, for we were wearied out, and retiring with thankful hearts to our hammocks, we were soon fast asleep.